has added two of their best tackles. We're talking left tackle Eric Fisher and right tackle Mitchell Schwartz have both been released. These are two starters, Pro Bowl players. We saw this team struggle in the Super Bowl without these two key players because they were both injured. Eric Fisher has the Achilles injury. Mitchell Schwartz dealing with a knee injury. They both have been rehabbing, trying to get back for the season, and all signs pointed that they were going to be okay. But it's obvious the Chiefs are trying to get some relief. And by cutting these guys, they're saving roughly $20 million against their cap for next year. So it's one of these tough business decisions that had to be made. But look at this, Greeny, and think, what is this offensive line going to look for Patrick Mahomes? Because we saw what they tried to crop together in the Super Bowl, and that sure as heck did not work.
No, it was a disaster, and Fisher was the #1 pick in the draft not so long ago, and so now this move here. In fact, let's make this Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. The point was made at the very end of our TV show today, Diana, that because of the completely unusual circumstances of this season, because of the blip that is this year's salary cap coming way down, that this week is going to be different from any other. So give the folks who don't know this a sense. Which are the teams who are in good shape salary cap-wise that might be able to snap up players that become available, and which are the teams that are in bad shape that might wind up having to make more cuts that we never saw coming?
Yeah, let's start with the bad, okay? So the New Orleans Saints are doing this cap gymnastics routine right now, trying to get at least somewhat close to the cap space, but they're in such bad shape. They're about $30 million. Actually, it's probably a little closer now because they did cut Janoris Jenkins while we were on TV a little while ago, and that will save them roughly another $7. So we're talking they've got another about 20-something to go to get even, and they're working hard. And I talked to people there, and they don't seem panicked. They don't feel concerned about it because they think they can make this work by just continuing to sort of kick the rock down the road, Green. That's how it was described. You just kind of figure out a way to put it off to the next year and the year after that. You have the Atlanta Falcons, who have really been quiet over the last few weeks. I mean, we know that they hired a new GM and a new head coach in Arthur Smith, Terry Fontenot running the show there, but they're not doing much, and they're not going to be able to do much. They're going to just continue to try to look at their roster to make the cut. So those are teams that they're going to continue to try to make moves happen. And then let's go to the top of it, right? The New York Jets are in great shape. I just feel like once again, just a few years ago they were in great shape, and here they are with lots of money to spend. And it's all going to really come down to what they're going to decide in-house as to who their quarterback's going to be and what pieces they're going to be able to want to build around him. So, it's been a difficult few weeks for these GMs that I've spoken to. A lot of frustration because they didn't know that final salary cap number. But now that we know it, it's at $182.5 million, a number that I have to tell you, Greenie, came low based on a lot of teams I was talking to. Most were going 185. I had one team who has been planning, think about this, the last few weeks for 190. And they're completely off. So they're making cuts. So lots of players on these teams that perhaps would be on the roster because GMs would be willing to pay them another $1, another $2 million, perhaps, no longer. They're getting cut. If you can't help us win now, you're going to get cut.
Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. The other thing I wanted to get quickly with you, Diana Rossini, with me here on ESPN Radio is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but as we were talking this morning, both in the meeting and then on TV, I get the sense from you more than anyone I've talked to who covers all this stuff as intensely as you do, that you feel there is a real chance that Russell Wilson winds up getting traded this offseason. I don't want to put that in your mouth. Is that the right way to phrase the way you look at this?
Mike, the waters are too rough. By this point, this should have been shut down on both sides because look how ugly it can get when both sides aren't getting along around the league when we've seen this happen before. Look in Houston. Things can always get better. But no organization wants this sort of split feeling with an agent who represents the players releasing on the record. This wasn't even an off-the-record statement that his agent gave Adam Schefter of, we don't want to get traded, but here are the 4 teams if we were. That tells you how unhappy Russell Wilson is. And the fact that this team, this organization, is picking up calls and having conversations with different teams that tells you they're open for this. It's just going to be who's got the draft capital and who's got the answer in Seattle for who's going to replace Russell Wilson, because that seems to be the topic of why, or at least the issue of why this isn't happening, because Seattle doesn't have an answer at the quarterback position if they trade with any of the teams that Russell wants. So until they can figure that out, he's staying in Seattle. But this certainly could happen if some team gets creative.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. Again, the first round of the NFL draft is 7 weeks from last night. Or excuse me, tonight. Today is Thursday. What am I talking about? It's 7 weeks from today. And if something's going to happen, it's going to happen in that period of time. Diana, outstanding as always. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next few days.
Thanks, Greeny. You're not sure what day of the week it is. I don't even know what year we're in, so good for you. You work too much.
Okay, thank you. That's the great Diana Rossini with me. Breaking Moves.
Breaking Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
Yeah, there is just so much going on here. She's right, and we'll bring the hashtag crew in on that as we continue. And again, that's going to be one of the themes of this day. Today is the anniversary of the day the world kind of stopped. And Adam Silver is the man who kind of stopped it. Obviously through no fault of his own. He's going to join me live in our second hour today, and our list is fascinating. It's the top 5 moments in sports you never forget where you were when they happened. I have those for you next. We're just getting started. I'm glad you're here. I'm Greeny on ESPN Radio.
This Morning with Greeny, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, on the 1-year anniversary of the day sports stopped.
Fans, due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed.
Adam Silver with Greeny, this morning at 11:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN Plus.
You heard that safe drivers get rewarded with Snapshot from Progressive, so you went online to check it out. But then you saw an ad for a vintage baseball cap, and now you find yourself checking the stats of that team's second baseman in '97, wondering why his stolen base total dropped after his rookie season. Wonder how much his rookie card is worth. Yes, they said it was easy to save money with Snapshot from Progressive, but they forgot about the rest of the internet. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Snapshot not available in California, North Carolina, or from all agents.
O'Reilly. This is Derek's O'Reilly Auto Parts story. After the 3rd time jump-starting my car, I finally realized my bad...
15.
Hello, Moto.
screen. They just put it on the big, the Jumbotron or whatever that thing is called in the middle of it, in the old Chicago Stadium. And they just put up the words, "We love you, Magic." Magic was not in the arena at the time, obviously. The Lakers weren't involved. But they put up on the screen, "We love you, Magic." And spontaneously, the crowd just stood and applauded. And there was a prolonged standing ovation in the arena that night for Magic Johnson. Again, on a day that all of us were thinking, oh my God, Magic Johnson is going to die. The world has changed a lot in the 30 years since, and in this regard, in so many ways for the better. Again, that is no longer a death sentence, thank God. But that is number 4 on my list of days that I will just never forget.
Number 3.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
John Lennon, dead on arrival. To this day, I get the chills hearing that. That's the legendary Howard Cosell announcing to the world on December 8th, 1980, that John Lennon, one of the greatest artists that the world has ever produced, had been shot and killed outside of his apartment, which is called the Dakota, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And that announcement was made on Monday Night Football. That was during a Monday Night Football game. And Howard Cosell is the one who told the world about it. You've seen specials about it, even if you're not old enough to remember it. And of course I am, and I remember we just had the 40-year anniversary of his passing just a couple of months ago, and I talked about it a little bit here, how much John Lennon's music has meant to me in my life. I remember going to school the following day, and I remember teachers crying. I was too young to fully understand the importance of John Lennon to the world. I knew the music, of course. I knew the Beatles songs. But I remember what struck me was that there were teachers in the hallways of my school crying. And that's what I remember most about that. I remember Howard Cosell announcing that John Lennon had been killed. And I remember the teachers in school crying the next day. December of 1980, I would have been in 8th grade. And again, it is another of those days defined by sports that you will never forget. Number 2.
Number 2.
We are looking at live pictures of Interstate 5 in Los Angeles. We believe that white vehicle, which is being trailed by a phalanx of California Highway Patrol cars and helicopters, belongs to Al Collins, who disappeared with O.J. Simpson earlier today, shortly after Mr. Simpson was informed that he was going to be formally charged with the murder of his wife and the young man who was with her at the time. It is the latest bizarre development in a string of bizarre and shocking developments that have been going on all day long.
That is Tom Brokaw on NBC delivering to the world the news of the O.J. Simpson chase, June 17th, 1994. And there have been 30 for 30s done on this day. O.J. Simpson in the chase, and of course, if you were old enough to have been conscious of what was going on then, it is certainly a day that you will never forget. The entire world was transfixed by the image of this white Ford Bronco driving up and down the highway, the freeways in Los Angeles. And of course, that night was scheduled to be, and was played, a game in the NBA Finals that involved the New York Knicks and the Houston Rockets, which the juxtaposition of that was just ludicrous. And I have told this story before on the air, but I also remember what I did that morning. Many people don't realize that that same day was the day that the opening ceremonies of the World Cup in the United States took place in Chicago, and I was there. I lived in an apartment close to Soldier Field. I was close enough to walk. I lived in 800 South Wells in Chicago, was my address, and that's walking distance on a nice day to Soldier Field. And I was a reporter in Chicago at the time, June 17th of 94. And I was covering the opening ceremonies of the World Cup. I walked there on a beautiful sunny day in Chicago and covered the opening ceremonies of the World Cup, finished my work, walked back to my apartment, and heard the words, O.J. Simpson is armed and dangerous. Now, I'm old enough for O.J. Simpson to have been one of my heroes. When I was a little kid in the 70s, the two biggest stars in sports by far The two stars in sports who became celebrities that transcended sports, which is now a commonplace occurrence. So many sports heroes, so many athletes transcend sports. In the 70s, very few did. The two who did, for me, were Joe Namath and O.J. Simpson. And so O.J. Simpson was always someone I had been fascinated by. And so, like everyone, I sat and watched this go on all day. And then, of course, the Knicks are playing in the finals that night against the Rockets, June 17th of 94. It is, 30 for 30s have been done about that day, obviously. It's a day that you will never forget. And then finally,
number one.
Fans, due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe. And take your time in leaving the arena tonight and do so in an orderly fashion. Thank you for coming out tonight.
I'm Scott Van Pelt here at ESPN. This astounding and unprecedented story continues to evolve. At halftime with Adrian Wojnarowski, I suggested that we would speak to him soon. I had no idea that it would be this soon. He has just tweeted within the past 2 minutes that the NBA is suspending the season.
That's my buddy Van Pelt. 1 year ago tonight, March 11th, 2020, the day that sports came to an end and signaled the beginning of the pandemic in this country in so many ways. And that had to be number one, I think, amongst all these other things that have happened. And of course, the president was shot, but he didn't die. And Magic Johnson still with us. John Lennon assassinated, a horrific tragedy. O.J. Simpson, the O.J. Simpson chase, something that transfixed the world. But this literally stopped the world in its tracks. A year ago today, the world stopped in its tracks. And one of the ways you will always remember it was the night that the commissioner of the NBA put their season on pause. None of us had any idea what we were about to all live through. And that is a very special green list today of the 5 events as defined by sports that you will never forget where you were when they took place. And it really is astonishing. And for me, again, I will always remember the date. When people say, what was the date all this happened? I will always remember it was March 11th because it happens to be my wife's birthday. Today is my wife's birthday, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I remember that it is March 11th because it is a date that stands out. And it was a Wednesday night, and Stace and I went out for a little early dinner at a restaurant right near us, just to have a little. I don't go out, much on weeknights when I'm working. So we just had a little casual dinner, and we had plans that weekend to have a little more of an elaborate celebration for her birthday. I went home, I watched Northwestern play in the opening round of the Big Ten tournament, as they did again last night, and I went to sleep. And I woke up the next morning to come to work, and I found that the world as I knew it was no longer the same place. The world that I went to sleep in was not the same world I'd woken up in. And as it was for all of you, it was extraordinarily bizarre for me. And so we will talk to Adam Silver exactly an hour from now about exactly that. I can't fathom being the person who has to make those decisions. There's a fascinating thing the New York Times did today where they have interviews with a ton of different people who just give quotes about their experience on this day a year ago. And one of them is Adam Silver. And he talks about how as this was going on, he said he was in his car, sitting outside his apartment building in Manhattan, when he got word that Rudy Gobert had tested positive for the virus. And he sat there for a minute and contemplated what it meant, and sitting there in his car, he made the decision that they had to suspend the season. So we will talk to Adam about all of that and much, much more again when he joins us live in an hour. But what an extraordinary thing, and that is a great job by the staff putting that list together. That really is extraordinarily well done. I'm proud of it, and those are the 5 moments from sports that you will never forget. Greeny with you, presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who save with Progressive save over $750 on average. Call or click today, find out if they can save you hundreds on your car insurance. Meantime, we got into something yesterday that we did not have time to take calls on, and I think it is imperative that we do. I think this is very important. I want to hear what you think. If you were a basketball fan, I want to hear what you think about my belief that analytics, in particular in the way of the three-point shot, are destroying basketball. They are a real problem for a sport that from my youth has been my favorite game. So analytics, as I told you yesterday, it's an ugly word. Like, analytics is a word that a lot of words, they conjure up images we don't like. It's lifeless, it's bloodless, it's advanced statistical analysis. No one gets excited about anything called that. But the truth of the matter is, analytics are sports, now and forevermore. That will never not be the case. And as we discussed yesterday, analytics have been magnificent for football. All the things that analytics dictate to people to do, analytics are just using math to understand these are the best ways I can go about trying to win, to tilt the odds to my advantage. Just like if you're playing blackjack or anything else. And it's the only way sports are going to be run from now on. And through math, people have figured out in football that passing the ball, going for it on fourth down, going for two, taking more risk, increasing offense, those things are the things you do to help you win. They also happen to be the things that make the game eminently more watchable. So they've been great for football. They've been horrendous for baseball. The pace of the game is a slog. The ball is never in play. There are never late-game confrontations between legendary pitchers and sluggers, which are the best thing in baseball. And even the home run has become basically humdrum. So baseball has really suffered for this. It is my overwhelming belief that we have a real problem with this in basketball now. Because as Daryl Morey said in this terrific piece that Kevin Arnovitz put together, one of the great things about any sport or any competition is that there are multiple ways to go about trying to win. My favorite thing about the Michael Jordan Bulls teams that I covered was that they would basically walk out on the court every single night and say, how do you want to play tonight, guys? We'll beat you however you want to play. You want to run up and down the court here? We'll beat you. You want to play, you want to walk it up and down and play defense? We'll beat you. However you want to play, we'll beat you. And what is happening now is that through analytics and through the disproportionate value of a three-point shot, it is worth 50% more, and it isn't even close to being 50% harder to do. There's only one way to win. The only way to do it is going to be to continue to hoist up threes, left and right. And so I presented to you yesterday my solution to this problem, which I think is simple. I just think they need to move the line back. You just need to move it back a little and then keep moving it back more and more until you get to a place where the percentage on these shots is just not that high. Hembo told you yesterday, teams shoot 40% from the corner three. 40% for times three. That's 120 points per 100 possessions. You can't match that anywhere else on the floor. You practically need to have uncontested slam dunks as your option for anything else to be a better shot than that. So it's not going to change until they change something. And my solution is just move out that line until the shots get more difficult to make. So I want to get the opinions of the hashtag crew, and then I'm going to come to the phones. So my number is 888-SAY-ESPN. We'll start dialing those in a minute, but it's Nuno who's going to take those calls, and it's Nuno from whom I want to hear first. Nuno loves the NBA, and I appreciate your love for the sport, Nuno, and that's why I want to give you the first shot at this from all the members of the hashtag crew. It's a two-part question. Are you concerned about the number of three-pointers that are being taken in the sport? Do you feel it has made the game less watchable? And if so, do you have a solution up to and including mine?
I do hate the way that they're playing now with way too many three-point shooting. I think for your idea of moving it back, you also have to make the court wider. I think at this point, because of the athletes and everything else, I think it would only make sense to completely redo everything. Redo the lane. Push out the three-point line, make the court wider at this point.
Okay, so then we're talking about an even bigger change to the sport. There are big changes that have happened in sports all the time. They make big moves. I don't know that the playing surface of basketball or any of them that are standard have changed in a very long time, if ever. I need to think about that.
The dimensions are different in international competition.
Correct. Well, certainly the lane is different and all the rest of that. So, okay, so Nuno is on board here. Hashtag Bubba, who, of course, is a statistician and knows about the analytics, has written several books on the subject. Bubba, what are your thoughts on this conversation?
It doesn't really bother me that much.
Typical Bubba.
I'm not too concerned about it.
Fair enough. Bubba, what's the last time you sat and watched an NBA game?
I threw on the All-Star game for a little bit, and every once in a while I pop on the old NBA and check it out.
Okay, fair enough. So, Bubba, we will come back to you when we're talking about the Cowboys or the Mets. Those seem to be your two primary considerations.
I'll see you then.
In the meantime, my number is 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Nuno can start now screening your calls. If we want you to jump in here and tell us what you think, I will turn to my vice president of analytics, and that is Hembo. Hembo, what do you think?
So I think this is the best illustration. Answer this question for me. Which has been the best team in the NBA this season?
The best team, I think, is Utah.
That's right. Which team has made the most threes?
I'm guessing you're going to tell me it's Utah.
And which team has allowed the fewest threes?
It's Utah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I don't know that it's necessarily as simple as that, because it's all well and good to be great at that. The problem is it's all anybody is doing.
Right.
There's no other way to do it. Like, there's no other way to be good. There's no other way to win. I was actually watching a college game last night. I watched Northwestern, Minnesota, and that was no work of art, I'll tell you. It was a terrible game. But they're not just hoisting up threes left and right. Like, it actually is more interesting. And these teams, neither team could make a shot last night, including from the foul line. But at least they're not just hoisting up three after three after three. So that's what we think. Again, 888-SAY-ESPN is my number. We want to know what you think. Your calls on this are coming up next after this. Time for some straight talk. Your tax return could look different this year, but you're still going to hear a lot of noise about how to spend it. So when the big carriers tell you to splurge on the latest nonsense, just tune that out. With Straight Talk, you can get a Samsung Galaxy A51 for just $199, plus get the $45 unlimited talk, text, and data plan with no contract on America's best networks for up to 50% less. Tune out the nonsense and tune into Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Your calls are next on ESPN Radio.
With supplies and solutions for every industry, Grainger is always there to help. Click Grainger.com/safety.
Trust the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts to recommend the best products for your car. Like 5 quarts of O'Reilly full synthetic motor oil and a MicroGuard filter, just $26.99. Extend the life of your vehicle and improve performance with a synthetic oil change. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Making Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs.
In 2003, it was rare for freshmen to carry a college basketball team. Never mind two of them. But for Syracuse, Carmelo Anthony and Terry McNamara did just that, all the way to a national championship. Anthony led the team in scoring and rebounds, while McNamara led the team in assists and was third in scoring. In the national championship game against Kansas, Carmelo was the game's leading scorer with 20, and McNamara added 18.
Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
March is the biggest month in college basketball, where teams across the country test their talent in the hopes of winning it all. For finding talent that can help your team win it all, there's LinkedIn Jobs. Post a job with targeted screening questions, and LinkedIn will quickly get your role in front of qualified candidates. Manage job posts and contact candidates from a single view, as functions are streamlined onto one simple screen. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/sports. That's linkedin.com/sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Allstate now has deeper savings, and deeper savings require deep thoughts and a deep voice, like mine. Save for being a new customer. Save more for adding DriveWise, and save even more for driving safely. Visit Allstate.com or contact your local agent for a quote today. As someone once said, saving today is money tomorrow. That's deep.
Not available in every state. New customer savings based on early signing discount. DriveWise is an optional feature. Savings vary based on how you buy. Subject to terms and conditions. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Rutherford, Illinois.
I hate Tom's Tulip Shop. It just smells so flowery. Like we get it, you're a flower shop. You don't need to remind us.
No matter how hard you work for your small business, online reviewers will find something to complain about.
I need a fake plant. They don't sell fake plants. Thanks for nothing, Tom.
And while Progressive can't save you from these trolls, we can help you save money on commercial, auto, and business insurance.
And he says, have a great day. I'll decide what kind of day to have.
Get a quote online today at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliated and third-party insurers.
It's time for some straight talk. Your tax return could look different this year, but you're still going to hear a lot of noise about how to spend it. So when the big carriers tell you to splurge on the latest nonsense, just tune it out. With Straight Talk, you can get a Samsung Galaxy A51 for just $199. Plus, get the $45 unlimited talk, text, and data plan with no contract on America's best networks for up to 50% less. Tune out the nonsense and tune into Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise.
The journey continues. The 2021 Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship. Coverage of the semifinals begins tomorrow at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Coming up on the Max Kellerman Show, it's been 1 year since the sports world shut down due to COVID-19. The Max Kellerman Show, 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN Plus.
The biggest names in sports, coming to your mornings.
Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski.
Kevin, there were so many expectations about Baker Mayfield coming into this season, but what impressed you most about him?
One of the things I love about Baker is how he works. He's a gym rat. He grinds. He wants to be great, and he understands that there's no secret. You can't snap your fingers and it just happens.
The biggest names in sports, every morning with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on ESPN Radio.
Around the Rim presents I'm Speaking.
Listen, no one gasses you like a black woman gasses you, okay? This is what I'm talking about. That's what I wanted us to step into. We do it so well. It's like an art form. And I just want us to continue to take it to a next level, so we do it for ourselves, too. And so, yes, nobody was talking about me until I started talking about me.
Listen to Around the Rim presents I'm Speaking, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Max Kellerman Show. Do you know why there's a salary cap in the NFL? Because Jerry Jones, after he bought the Cowboys, led the charge for a salary cap. And then the day they signed Deion Sanders. And all the other owners said, wait a minute. You just led the charge for a salary cap. You can't afford Deion Sanders. And Jerry said, oh, no. That's just a signing bonus. I prorate that over this many years, 6 years, 8, whatever it is. So it only counts against the cap like this. See, Jerry Jones manipulated a system he helped invent early before others knew how to manipulate it. And that gave him a leg up. He got Deion Sanders in there, and the Cowboys couldn't be beaten at that point. As soon as that little parlor trick, other people learned it, which was like that day, Jerry Jones never won another Super Bowl. Been 25 years, still hasn't won.
The Max Kellerman Show, weekdays at 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Watch exclusively on ESPN Plus.
Janae and Golick Jr.
When it comes to James Harden's game, all the whole aesthetics factor of the NBA players, like he just is cheating, he should do it within the game. Why don't y'all try to do it yourself before you start keeping that same energy and judging him harder than you judge other people that do the exact same moves, but he just does it better?
Janae and Golick Jr. Weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN Plus.
Hey, it's Scott Van Pelt, back in the podcast game, SV Pod. My guy Stanford Steve alongside. Present. I do nothing without Stanford Steve. I can do nothing. I can't think without the man, so he's here to keep me company and maybe chop it up, talk some stories. Look, you know what podcasts are. It's the same deal. Rate, review, subscribe. One big thing, dive a little deeper, maybe some bad beats, whatever's interesting to you. Sounds good. There you go. We'll see you on the other side. Wait a minute. What time do we start? See?
You're good. Oh, you're good.
That was it?
Yeah. This is Bart and Hahn.
We're talking Rachel Nichols. Who are the biggest threat to the Nets and who's the biggest threat to the Lakers out west?
Look, the collision course of the Lakers and Nets is what NBA fans in their heart of hearts know is going to be a spectacular showdown if it happens. Utah is making a lot of noise, the Clippers, and then in the East, Philadelphia. And hey, I'm going to put the Heat as the defending Eastern Conference champions, and we'll see what they can do.
Bart and Hahn. Weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN Plus. And ESPN Radio Extra Point with Mike Mike Golick Jr.
He used a number of other words, a number of other curses to show that he was frustrated there and angry with the situation, and took a big, deep breath right before that and seemed to be ready to let out whatever his frustrations were with a word that he felt in that spot applied. And so that's an appropriate question to ask him is, what did you think it meant? But you and I have both seen this time and time again. What are these apologies end up really being about? Getting away from the situation, not getting better from the situation. Can I protect my image enough to keep my job? And the burden always seems to be on the group of people that have been offended in this spot. The burden got to start getting flipped around more the other way to say, if Myers Leonard really wants us to give him any of this grace, you got to show on the other side, because history is littered, unfortunately, with too few examples of people actually willing to do the work and far too many examples of people that just want to say the things they feel like they need to, check the boxes in the apology, and then get on with it. Duke is out of the ACC tournament, not because they lost, but because there was a positive COVID test within the program. They were scheduled to play Florida State today in an ACC tournament that they would need to win all of. They would need to win out in order to have any chance to get into the NCAA tournament. That isn't going to happen now. They beat Louisville yesterday. They were working their way towards having a chance. Now it appears they're going to be out of the tournament because of the positive test. That is the latest news we have here on ESPN Radio. Meantime, I want to come to the phones and get in as many as we can. I brought up the idea that I believe the three-point shot has become a problem for the NBA. I believe they need to make some changes. I believe it has made the game infinitely less watchable, and that it is something they need to address quickly. I'm coming to your phone calls to find out if you agree or disagree. Bubba, who's first up?
First up, we have Nikki.
All right, Nikki, you're on ESPN Radio. What do you think?
See, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I think analytics is destroying sports all across the board. Like, it's emasculating the sports. I'm old school NBA. I remember a time where you get to play, everybody played inside the paint. Now everybody's going outside the paint. Like, everybody, there's no, it's taken away from all the tough guys. Like, it's not just NBA, it's sports in general. Football, basketball, and they're starting to do it with MMA now. Thanks for the call.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't go nearly that far, but I will say that, yes, specifically with what it has done to the NBA, the era of the big man is just over. It's just over. Right now, basically, the only guys who you would describe as a center basically are rim protectors and lob catchers. And that's all they're asked to do. And they're a dime a dozen. They used to be the glory position. That used to be like the matinee idol of the NBA was the center. So I do not like the change that it has made. I appreciate the call. Bubba, who's next?
We got Marty is up.
Marty, what do you think?
I think we should get rid of zone defense. Just play man-to-man and just defend it. I don't think we need to change anything but that.
So you're okay with the three?
I'm okay with the three, yeah. Just defend it. Make them play man-to-man like the old-school NBA.
Okay, well, look, the zone defense through most of the league's history had been outlawed. It is not anymore. I get it. I know a lot of people don't like the zone defense. To me, it's a much lesser problem than the proliferation of threes is. But, Marty, I appreciate the call. Bubba, who's next?
We got Robert.
All right, Robert, what do you think?
Hey, Grady, before I give you my opinion, I got to tell you one thing. March 30th, 1981 was the semifinal day. It was not the final day. They always played the first Monday in April. But okay. I personally love the three-point shot. College basketball has moved it back twice since Tony Bennett set the record when he played. Move it back further, but you got to keep it. I think it's one of the most exciting things in the game.
To be clear, I'm not talking about eliminating the three-point shot. I'm talking about moving out the arc so it isn't as easy to make. Would you have any problem with that, or were you against that?
Not at all. No, I listened to you yesterday, and I really agree with you. I think you got to move it back if it's unfair. So I want it to be 100% fair. So moving it back makes it even. That's what we should do.
Fair enough. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Greeting with you on ESPN Radio. Are you worried that the three-point shot is a problem for the NBA as currently constituted is the question. We're going in search of the answer from you. Bubba, who's next?
We got Chris.
Chris, you're on ESPN Radio. What do you think?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm going to piggyback on Marty's opinion here. I think if you defend it, check these guys at half court. So these guys are playing rec league defense until the final 4 minutes of the game. We just got to let us do a little more on the defensive end, like back in Jordan's era, we can hand check or whatever. I mean, make it where these guys are forced to play defense.
Phone's breaking up there a little bit, but I'm getting the sense. I'm getting the sense of this. Hebo, is there any way to quantify numerically how defense has changed or how defense is dealing with this?
Well, the freedom of movement is the thing that they're talking about a lot now. It was in that piece that we talked about before. But like the problem here is if the NBA wants to do that again, you're going to play a much different style of basketball. Right. So I think the call. It's a good take, but it's like saying in baseball they shouldn't, they should not ban the shift and they should hit past it or hit through it. Like sometimes you have to do stuff to regulate things to improve your product. To me, this is no different.
Yeah, they change rules all the time. They could make these change pretty easily if they wanted to. Bubba, who's next?
We have Josh.
Josh, what do you think?
I'm a little worried about the three-point shot. I know like back in the day, typically you had like your one or two, like Ray Allen and stuff that shot the three. But now it's gotten to where teams want a big man that can shoot the three, and there's nobody protecting the paint or anything like that. And I think that falls a little bit on defense, but I think they can back the line up 2 or 3 feet, and that might change it a little bit, but that's just something they have to trial and error.
That's it. And that's amazing answer. Thank you very much for calling, and thank you, everybody, for the calls. And we'll continue to have these conversations because, look, I'm a fan like you are, and this is important to me. I grew up going to these games, and I have loved them all of my life. I can still smell Madison Square Garden in the 70s. I remember sitting there. I remember what it felt like, what it sounded like, what it smelled like. It smelled like cigars, which is hilarious when you think about it, the world we live in now. But the point is, I've loved basketball all my life, and this is not the game. Now, I hate sounding as much like my father as I do, although, I loved the man, but he would be yelling at this at me, Michael, this is not the game. And I would always say, Dad, come on, you're overreacting. But I'm not. I'm right. This is not the game. This is not what basketball is supposed to be. Basketball is beautiful. Basketball is poetry. What people love about soccer, the beautiful game, that's what we do. We play soccer with our hands.
So he brought up Ray Allen. Ray Allen averaged 5.7 three-point attempts per game. I want you to guess how many players are averaging that many this season.
There are 30 teams. I'm going to guess at least 30.
There are 51 players averaging as many threes this season as Ray Allen did per game for his career.
So there you go. The three-point shot is an excellent part of basketball. I'm not suggesting we take it out of the game. I'm merely saying it's now becoming all of basketball, and I think that's a problem. The commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, live in our next hour. Make sure you stay with me on ESPN Radio.
Coming up Thursday on Barton Hine, it's been a year since the sports world shut down. We'll revisit where you were and how we've done as a sports community on Barton Hine, 12 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN Plus.
It's time for some straight talk. Your tax return could look different this year, but you're still going to hear a lot of noise about how to spend it. So when the big carriers tell you to splurge on the latest nonsense, just tune it out. With Straight Talk, you can get a Samsung Galaxy A51 for just $199. Plus, get the $45 unlimited talk, text, and data plan with no contract on America's best networks for up to 50% less. Tune out the nonsense and tune in to Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise.
Dell Semi-Annual Sale is the perfect opportunity for a significant business upgrade. Save up to 45% on Dell computers built for business and powered by Intel Core processors. Plus, enjoy special pricing on Dell docks, monitors, servers, and more. All with easy financing options through Dell Financial Services. Speak to a Dell Technologies advisor today to find the right tech for your business with fast, free shipping. Call 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Bodega, Alpha and Omega. Siamese sailors sell celery sandwiches. A wing about a serving platter.
Hey, Jamie?
Yes?
Did you want to try reading that line on the script there?
Oh, yeah, let's see. You can save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive. That one? Yes. Yeah, no, I'm just not warmed up yet. Shouldn't be long. Detector test.
Bundle your home and auto with Progressive today.
The marmot mangled my mushy pork pancake.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Coming up Thursday on Barton Hine. It's been a year since the sports world shut down. We'll revisit where you were and how we've done as a sports community on Barton Hine, 12 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN Plus.
Sunday on the NBA on ESPN Radio.
Dribbling between legs, dribbles to his right, pull up, jumper is good from 10 feet on the baseline right. A clutch shot by Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and the LA Clippers head to New Orleans to face Zion and the Pelicans.
Zion Williamson, unbelievable play.
The place is here, the time is now. Top of the world and I can't come down.
The Clippers and Pelicans. Coverage begins Sunday at 8:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN. Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Zubin Mahente.
Pick one, throw the other one out. The garbage. Steph or Dame?
I feel like Dame. I just feel like he could do a little bit more to get everybody else kind of involved to a degree, and he could put it on his back and carry it pretty far. I've yet to see Steph carry
by himself. He's done it a couple of times this year, but not at the same volume like Dame.
Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio or streaming live on the ESPN app.
That's What She Said with Sarah Spain.
That's what she read for this week. Read Untamed. I've had the author, Glennon Doyle, on the podcast twice. I cannot scream it loudly enough from the rooftops that both men and women should read it. It ties back to what I said at the top, challenging the norms, recognizing implicit bias, racial bias, gender bias, wealth bias, all the ways the system is actually built to keep marginalized people from achieving power.
Listen or subscribe on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Quinn Snyder, who has flown under the radar for too long, has done a magnificent job coaching this Utah Jazz team up. Like, you know when the coach is really showing off almost? When the team plays like a machine, like a well-oiled machine. That Utah Jazz team is a machine, and that's coaching.
The Max Kellerman Show, weekdays at 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Watch exclusively on ESPN Plus.
Janae and Golick Jr.
Do you want to hop on the James Harden MVP train? Because it's officially open right now. I don't know how much longer.
No.
Do you want to get on?
No. Right? It's LeBron James. It's LeBron James to me. Just because, yes, I am an ageist. I firmly believe at the age of 36, when we've deprived this man since 2013 of an MVP trophy, that he should have had one maybe in the last 8 years. And I feel like at the age of 36, he's going to, like, this is his best chance to get an MVP. Next year, you never know what will happen. The following year, you know, Giannis is figuring out his game. You never know what's going to happen. Luka Doncic will maybe take it to another level. This is his probably last best year to win MVP versus, like, he's got a couple years for championships. So I'm sorry. I am the #1 person here at ESPN that supports James Harden based on my Houston Rockets loyalty and my roots. But I would say he's top 3 now, not necessarily #1.
Janae and Golick Jr. Weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN Plus.
I'm Pablo Torre, host of the podcast ESPN Daily. Every weekday morning, I will bring you the best sports story you'll hear all day. Today on ESPN Daily, on March 11th, 2020, exactly 1 year ago today, the spotlight shined directly onto Rudy Gobert as COVID's patient zero. Lisa Salters shares what Gobert's night was like as the world went on pause. So follow us and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hulu.com.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Breaking news, Duke is out of the ACC tournament after a positive COVID-19 test within the program. With the Blue Devils dropping out, it's unlikely they'll make the NCAA tournament. It would be their first absence since 1995. More players being released as NFL teams try to continue to get under the $182 million salary cap when the new league year starts on Wednesday. Chiefs cut both starting offensive tackles Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, saving about $12 million against the salary cap. The Saints released cornerback Janoris Jenkins, team saving at least $7 million against the cap.
Download Download the DraftKings app and use code GREENY to get a free shot at millions of dollars up for grabs this week with your first deposit. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
From the ESPN studios at Pier 17 in the Seaport District of New York City, this is Greeny with Mike Greenberg on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and on ESPN Plus.
It is huge hour. Greeny presented by Progressive Insurance. Adam Silver, Commissioner of the NBA, in a half hour live on the Goodyear Hotline on the anniversary of the day that he personally made the pandemic feel real for almost all of us in America. Fascinating story. He told it a little bit in the New York Times today, and we will talk about it live in a half hour. Adam Silver again with me here on ESPN Radio. We'll talk about that and much more with the Commissioner of the NBA. I have a lot I'm trying to get to here, but I have one very quick announcement to make. Bubba, give me some music. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to my favorite person in the world. My wife Stacy's birthday is today. I will always remember the world of sports shut down on March 11th because I will always remember that it happened on my wife's birthday. We had gone out for a little early dinner, as I told you before, and today is her birthday, and as I have said many times, and I'll say this, people sometimes make fun of me for how much I talk about my wife, and here's the way I look at it. If you're going to make fun of me for anything, that seems like a pretty benign thing, right? Like, I can live with that. So what I've said about her before, and I'll say it again, is the best thing any person can do for you in life is to believe in you in the times when you don't believe in yourself. Find yourself someone who does that. That's the key to life. That's the key to a good relationship, is someone who doesn't stop believing in you at the times when you yourself have some question. So she's been doing that for 25 years and change, 23 years of marriage, and we will do a little celebrating this weekend. A very happy birthday, sweetie, and I will see you a little bit later. Now, let's get to the football news. Salary cap space in the NFL has never been more valuable than it is right this minute because of a blip. Some teams will be disproportionately helped by this blip. Salary cap has been rising steadily in the NFL. There's an expression in business that nothing grows all the way to the sky, but the NFL does. The NFL salary cap is just going to keep going up and up and up as revenues go up. And starting next year, when some of the new TV deals you've been reading about start to kick in, those are going to happen somewhere along the line here soon. I don't know exactly what they'll be, but at some point soon here, they're going to happen. And the salary cap is going to explode. So this is really like a one-year thing caused by this extraordinary circumstance of the pandemic. And what's going to happen as a result of it, as the salary cap dips 8%, this is going to make a huge difference for the teams that have cap space this year. Because there are a bunch of them that don't. And you heard Christine Lisi just say it in the Sports Center there. The Chiefs have cut Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. They're two starting tackles. And you're going to see a lot more there. You're going to see teams cutting players this week. It's going to happen today and tomorrow and working all the way through to the end of the league year, which is next Tuesday into Wednesday. Hembo, give me the 2 or 3 teams that are in the worst shape, the worst salary cap shape.
The Rams are 31 million over.
That's bad.
The Saints are 30 million over, and the Eagles are 28 million over.
Okay, so those are the teams, excuse me, that aren't signing anybody. They're cutting people. They got to cut people. We're sitting here talking about whether the Saints can get Russell Wilson. Before they do that, they got to keep cutting people. They cut yesterday. Who they cut? Emmanuel Sanders and Quan Alexander and Janoris Jenkins. So they've already begun. So the Saints, the Eagles, the Rams, those are teams on the wrong side of the line. Who are the teams on the right side of the line?
The Jaguars have $74 million to spend.
Wow.
The Colts have 72.
Yeah.
The Jets have 70.
Will you say that again?
The Jets have $70 million in cap space.
Right. One more time.
The Patriots have 58.
No. That was not what I meant. So those are the teams that have the money to spend. This is your chance. Like, this is a time when you are buying, when the buying is good. It's a buyer's market. And all these players out there, I feel bad for them. Like, this is just the worst possible situation. And again, many people have suffered far worse from the pandemic. But, imagine you're a football player and this is your livelihood and you're a great player and this would never have happened to you. But all of a sudden, because of this dip in the salary cap, I did find myself wondering if they couldn't have figured out a way to spread that out. You know, like they will spread out contracts in the NFL. Could they have spread out this dip in the salary cap or just kind of kicked it forward to future years? The owners don't do that. They just don't do that. They just take the money. The owners are unbelievable in the NFL. But anyway, that's what's going to happen, to keep a close eye on all of this. That's one of the two big stories in the NFL. The other one is Russell Wilson. If you were watching Get Up this morning, or if you were listening at the beginning of this radio show, you heard Diana Rossini, who's an outstanding insider, as plugged in as anybody. And she told us in no uncertain terms, this thing is real. Russell Wilson getting traded could really, definitively could happen. And the likeliest place, I believe, is the Bears. The Bears, I believe, because of the desperation that they feel, based not on 101 years of subpar quarterback play, but based on the maybe 6 or 8 weeks of leash that their coach and their general manager have this season before they are basically, professionally speaking, dead men walking. They need to go out there and get a quarterback. And between Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, I believe the Bears are the team that should be and will be the most aggressive in their pursuit. So let's see. And I wonder if Russell Wilson, there's a lot of talk. Why is he doing this? Why is he disgruntled? They've done so much for him. I think Dominique Foxworth had it right the other day on our TV show. When Dominique said, I think Russell feels passed over. Like the league it belongs to the great quarterbacks. And the generation of great quarterbacks, Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, onto Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli, those guys aged out. And I think Russell viewed himself as the guy who was going to become the face of the league next. And he just got skipped. It just went right to Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and Josh Allen and all these young guys. And I think Russell Wilson is sitting there going, how about me? And maybe if he didn't play in Seattle, maybe if he didn't play for a coach who believes in running the ball and defense, maybe he'd be the face of the league. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be that. So it could be as simple as that, as to why he wants to get out. By the way, I see people proposing a trade of Deshaun for Kyler Murray. Did you see that?
Yeah.
People are talking about that. My thought, Kyler Murray getting traded to Houston would be the best thing that ever happened to the Oakland A's. If Kyler Murray got traded to Houston, I believe he would be leading off and playing center field. What position did he play?
Center field, and he'd probably become immediately baseball's most popular player.
He would become baseball's best known and most popular player. That's, I believe, what would happen if he got traded to Houston. Greeny presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. I'll take a quick break here. The green list is outstanding today. We'll do that next, and then don't miss the commish. Adam Silver live on the way on ESPN Radio.
Coming up on the Max Kellerman Show, it's been 1 year since the sports world shut down due to COVID-19. The Max Kellerman Show, 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
Capital One Quicksilver Card Show.
Cut! The Capital One Quicksilver Card is simple. No need for a whole song and dance. Don't be sad. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. That's the spirit. The Capital One Quicksilver Card is simple, unlimited 1.5% cash back. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One Bank, USA, N.A.
Good morning, privates! I mean, seriously, what a pleasant morning. The sun is shining and the birds are chirping. You seem to be in a good mood today. Astute observation.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut Cheerios can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
They're even shaped like hearts. So, in lieu of the obstacle course today, I propose a nice meditative nature walk. Does that sound delightful to everyone? Yes,
Happy Heart Shapes are back for a limited time. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at your local store.
Progressive Motorcycle presents Road Wisdom from the Motor. Half man, half motorcycle. To find your balance, keep riding. And if you stop, put your feet down so you don't fall. Progressive Motorcycle also presents Roadside Assistance. Progressive Motorcycle for those who were born to ride. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
The journey continues. The 2021 Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship. Coverage of the semifinals begins tomorrow at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Coming up later, we
take a look back at how sports and the entire world all stopped and started to change, responding to a global pandemic on March 11th, 2020. That's all coming up later. Janae Angola Jr. at 4 Eastern here on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
It's time to rise and grind. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin.
Blake Griffin is going to sign with the Nets.
What a new environment does for players is sometimes it awakens them, especially when they have a chance to win a title. Something that Blake Griffin, he only really had when he was with the Clippers, to be frank with you. Those teams with CP3 and DeAndre Jordan, they always fell short. You add his play with this team, it's over. The game is over. Now you can say, well, they have defensive issues. Okay, they have Nick Claxton, they have DeAndre Jordan. Now both serviceable bigs that can protect the middle if they have to go big. But now when you play with Blake Griffin in the lineup, a guy that shoots a good rate from the three-point line and has a good mid-range game, you involve him in pick and pops, his game will become unlocked when you put him with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, your smart speaker, or on ESPN News.
The Adam Schefter Podcast.
On this week's Adam Schefter Podcast, the Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts. What are your thoughts heading into your second season as the presumed starting quarterback?
Nothing changes. Going in every day trying to get better as a player. I think it was just an opportunity for me. It shows trust in what they think I can be as a player, so I want to prove it right.
The Adam Schefter Podcast. Listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
But the problem with AD and LeBron is you need multiple defenders who can not only switch, but guard a 7-footer and a guy who's 6'8". Not a lot of teams have that. Like, ideally, you'd have 3 or 4 of those guys. Lakers, if AD is healthy, are a matchup nightmare.
The Max Kellerman Show, weekdays at 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Watch exclusively on ESPN+.
Janae and Golick Jr.
I look at Mike McCarthy, I actually see most of the pressure going there, mostly because of that financial tie to Dak Prescott. Now, they looked at him, and now when we look at him, anytime something goes wrong with the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy is going to be the one. He was already had people calling for his jobs last year. I don't think that
already warm.
Yeah, that doesn't get easy for him this year.
No.
Janae and Golick Jr. Weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN+. This is ESPN Radio.
Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski.
I'm well aware that I can't do this thing alone. Giannis Antetokounmpo, most valuable player of the 70th All-Star game. Did you call bank on both of those threes? Giannis, come on.
I called ahead and they told me it's closed because it's Sunday, but it was open for me, so thank God.
Let's talk to the head coach of the Longhorns, Shaka Smart.
When I got it, kind of messed with me mentally. You know, I'm normally super positive, but it kind of got me down a little bit.
He played at Duke. He's with the Pacers. He's Cassius Stanley.
Every young guy will do. I've never been done before.
Great Doc Emmerich, who is with me here.
Aspire to do this and don't give up because it's really, really worth it.
The Warriors, Steph Curry.
Not that many people in here, but there was a little buzz going on.
He is Alabama head coach Nate Oates.
I have a tendency to put my foot in my mouth like a moron. As the Duke player would know, I had to apologize on that one before, too.
The biggest names in sports are here, and it all starts weekday mornings with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, and continues all day. This is ESPN Radio. Bart and Hahn.
Let's ask Stephen A, because he's the resident Dallas Cowboy expert. What say you about the Dak Prescott deal?
The bottom line is that the situation that he was in, it shouldn't have taken this long for Jerry Jones to finally pay him. But thank God he had the intestinal fortitude to wait it out and to demand what his value was or what he felt it was. And good for him.
Bart and Hahn, weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN+.
Money for research. It may not save my life. It may save
Sony lives. Because of all the donations, mine is one of the lives that's been saved.
Donating would help get better treatment so more kids can survive.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
To donate, go to v.org/donate.
This is Larry in Missouri, previously on the Paul Weinbaum Show.
I had a call from a guy named Jay in St. Louis. He was online
to get his COVID shot. He said he was 87, a former broadcaster, and he started to tell the story, and I'm thinking to myself, that's Jay Randolph. So I'm thinking, as a talk show host, come on, Paul, find out who this guy is. And I was overwhelmed, and I know, for a 25-year-old, I've been 25, and I've had my dad and family members say, you don't understand. But as you get older, you do start thinking back to a different era, and that's really, radio was such a personal medium, and television's phenomenal. Nobody's one of the great inventions of all time. There was nothing more personal than a kid and his transistor radio.
The Paul Feinbaum Show, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the ESPN app and on the SEC Network.
Presented by Progressive Insurance, the commissioner of the NBA. 15 minutes away, Adam Silver on the Goodyear Hotline. He'll join me momentarily. We also have today's Green List, which is inspired by the anniversary that today marks, and that is just a moment away. I will remind you also, of course, Selection Sunday is around the corner. We're working our way through the end of the college basketball season, and the Wendy's Wooden Watch is red hot. You can go to ESPN.com, search Wooden Watch for the list of the Wooden Award late season 15 nominees, top 15 nominees to watch. You can see Baylor's Jarrett Butler today. Baylor taking on K-State in the Big 12. It's 2:30 Eastern on ESPN. The John R. Wooden Award is presented by Wendy's.
The list is what determines who matters in this business.
The Green List. It's a very special edition of the Green List today. The staff worked real hard on this, and we're awfully proud of it. But today being the anniversary of the day that the world shut down because of the coronavirus pandemic, and the role that basketball clearly played in that, we have the top 5 moments from sports that you will never forget where you were when they happened.
Number 5.
Shots were fired, apparently at President Reagan as he was coming out of the Washington Hilton Hotel this afternoon. The president was not hit. He was pushed into his limousine and immediately taken away to safety. However, 3 persons were hit. We believe they are 2 Secret Service agents and the president's press secretary, James Brady.
James Brady of the Brady Bill. That was ABC News coverage, March 30th of 1981, when President Reagan was shot on the day of the college basketball national championship game. And that was such, if you're not old enough to remember, that was such a part of the narrative of that day. Would the game be played that night? And ultimately they decided to play it, and Indiana beat North Carolina 63-50 in the championship game. That was the Isaiah Thomas team. When we had Isaiah on recently, he talked about that day and being in the hotel and watching the news coverage of the president being shot, and the way that Coach Bob Knight, the legendary coach, had his team ready to play that night despite the enormity of the world events. Again, President Reagan shot on that day, the championship game played that night. That's number 5 on the list of the moments in sports you will never forget.
Number 4.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
That was Magic Johnson on November 7th, 1991, announcing his retirement, his extraordinarily premature retirement from the NBA because of HIV. And that was a day before social media, long before social media. But in the time before that announcement was made, I remember word starting to circulate. It was starting to spread. You would hear it on radio stations. That was the most immediate source of news we had then. And word came out that that's what he was going to announce, and he did. And I was covering sports at the time, and I distinctly remember that was at a time when HIV was a death sentence. And thank God, because of the millions of dollars that have been raised and the genius of the scientists who have put that money to good use, that is no longer the case. And Magic, of course, is still very much with us and healthy and wonderful. But at that time, I remember distinctly, my first thought when I heard that story was, oh my God, Magic Johnson is going to die. And that's the way I think everybody felt that day. Again, thank God it's not what wound up happening. But I remember going to Chicago Stadium that night to cover a Bulls game, and they just put up on the screen in the arena, "We love you, Magic." And the entire crowd just began a spontaneous standing ovation. And it is one of only 2 times I ever applauded during a game I was covering. There's a rule about no cheering in the press box. One of only 2 times I ever clapped in a press box. And I think everyone did that night in honor of Magic Johnson, whom we were all sure we would lose. That was November 7th, 1991. Moments you will never forget where you were from the world of sports.
Number 3.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
Still get chills. I mean, to this day, I get chills hearing Howard Cosell say that on Monday Night Football, and I still remember it. December 8th of 1980. I was 13 years old in 8th grade, and I was watching the game on Monday Night Football when that announcement was made by Cosell. It was Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football who told the world that John Lennon was dead. And I remember going to school the next day and teachers crying in the hallways and in classrooms over the death of one of the great artists that the world has ever known. And it was from the world of sports. It was on Monday Night Football that we all heard the news. You'll remember the next one.
Number 2.
We are looking at live pictures of Interstate 5 in Los Angeles. We believe that white vehicle, which is being trailed by a phalanx of California Highway Patrol cars and helicopters, belongs to Al Collins, who disappeared with O.J. Simpson earlier today, shortly after Mr. Simpson was informed that he was going to be formally charged with the murder of his wife and the young man who was with her at the time. It is the latest bizarre development in a string of bizarre and shocking developments that have been going on all day long.
Tom Brokaw with the announcement that of the O.J. Chase and A.C. Cowlings and that white Ford Bronco driving up the freeway in a day that no one will ever forget. And, of course, juxtapose against that the NBA Finals that night with the Knicks and the Rockets playing in the finals and the world watching that on a split screen on NBC. And what I always remember about that day also is that was the day of the opening ceremonies of the World Cup, which were in the United States. They were in Chicago and I covered them. I went to Soldier Field and I covered the opening ceremonies of the World Cup on that morning. And then I went home, and like everybody else, I watched O.J. Simpson driving on that freeway for the rest of the day. But number 1.
Number 1.
Because due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe.
That was 1 year ago tonight, March 11th, 2020. The announcement being made in Oklahoma City by the public address announcer that game that night between the Thunder and the Jazz was being postponed. It was because Rudy Gobert had tested positive for something called the coronavirus, something that none of us knew was going to change the world as we know it forever. And that was the night that it began. That was the night the NBA made the pandemic feel real for millions of people in this country and around the world. That's our green list for today. And the man who made the decision to cancel that game, to postpone that game, and to put the season on hold, and has made a million decisions ever since on the 1 year anniversary of it, will join me live next. Don't miss Adam Silver live here in a moment on ESPN Radio.
Whether you rent or own, Geico makes it easy to bundle home and car insurance. Go to geico.com today.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's time for some straight talk. Your tax return could look different this year, but you're still going to hear a lot of noise about how to spend it. So when the big carriers tell you to splurge on the latest nonsense, Just tune it out. With Straight Talk, you can get a Samsung Galaxy A51 for just $199. Plus, get the $45 unlimited talk, text, and data plan with no contract on America's best networks for up to 50% less. Tune out the nonsense and tune in to Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/greeny. In fact, ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/greeny. That's ZipRecruiter.com/GREENY.
Progressive presents The Sounds of the Old World. The year is 2019, and someone is waiting for a table at a restaurant.
Thompson, party of 4. Thompson, party of 4. Thompson, party... Oh, there you are.
This has been The Sounds of the Old World. Brought to you by Progressive, where drivers can still switch and save like it's 2019.
Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Sunday on the NBA on ESPN Radio. Los Angeles Clippers head to New Orleans to face the Pelicans.
Zion Williamson, unbelievable play.
Which begins at 8:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN. It's time to rise and grind. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin.
Stop looking at the way the New England Patriots do their financial business and apply that to other teams. Because if an owner and the capologists get in there and they want to pay somebody, they can find the money in the salary cap space to pay the players. So let's just stop that narrative that they don't have enough money and enough salary cap space to pay players to field a team so the team can be successful. Because that is a bunch of nothing. You've got to just take your hat off to the patience of Dak Prescott. He didn't allow the frustration to get involved in it. He made the smart decision. Like you said, Jay, he's somewhat bet on himself, and he won the situation. And the Cowboys won too. They got a deal done.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, your smart speaker, or on ESPN News.
That's what she said with Sarah Spain.
I talked to the woman in charge, Lisa Baird, the commissioner of the National Women's Soccer League. That's right. This is a commish podcast.
Listen or subscribe on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You have cancer. There's nothing you can do to prepare yourself.
Round 1, chemotherapy. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to survive. There's no way I'm going to let this take over me.
Cancer doesn't care what you look like, who you are.
It may not save my life. It may save my children's life. It may save someone you love.
Is cancer about you?
Live. Fight like hell. And when you get too tired to fight, let somebody else fight for you.
Because of all the donations, mine is one of the lives that's been saved.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Visit v.org/donate.
Janae and Golick Jr.
The most impressive team in the NBA, probably the Utah Jazz, but do you think it could be anyone else?
I think there's a great argument you can make. Utah, I understand there, but I would look on the other side and say the Philadelphia 76ers, more so because of what they came in, the expectation. Utah is in this spot where no one expects much of them. See all of the disrespect levied their way before the All-Star break. They did not walk into this team with any amount of pressure, Chene, but I'll tell you who did. The Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid, who's been getting pressure for the last few years for showing up, being in shape, being engaged. What is he going to be, the bad guy, the good guy? And Ben Simmons, who we thought should have been traded for James Harden when he was on the block during this season, but who still showed up and showed out. So, Janae, I think for them to be sitting at 1 in the East ahead of that Brooklyn Nets team right now, for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to probably be leading a lot of people's MVP race, it's hard for me to look away from Philly.
Janae and Golick Jr. Weekdays at 4 Eastern on ESPN Radio. And now, watch exclusively on ESPN Plus.
The Max Kellerman Show.
Shaq has been begging Embiid for this for years now. And Embiid is now looking at Miles Turner.
I want to beat him in that. And Rudy Gobert, I want to beat him. And I said on First Take today, it's like, remember the end of Predator 2 when Danny Glover gets on the ship and he's looking around and he sees the pelts of like Alien and E.T. and everything? I feel like that's where Embiid is now.
The Max Kellerman Show, weekdays at 2 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Watch exclusively on ESPN+.
Today, the NBA will hold a conference call to discuss the possibility of moving games or playing them without fans.
This is a really serious problem. We would recommend that there not be large crowds.
I think we saw our last college basketball game played tonight.
It's a terrible situation. It's scary.
The Thunder's head medical doctor came sprinting out onto the court.
Due to unforeseen circumstances, the game tonight has been postponed.
This astounding and unprecedented story continues to evolve. Rudy Gobert has tested positive for the coronavirus. The NBA is suspending the season.
What I felt before the game was this touch of anxiety. What I felt in the aftermath of that game was the beginning of fear.
To our audience, stay safe, take care of each other. We get through this together.
A long, strange year it has been for us all. I am Greeny. This is ESPN Radio, and it is my delight to welcome now the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, who has done in so many ways such an extraordinary job of navigating his league through these unprecedented and candidly at times almost impossible times, and who made the decision a year ago tonight that for so many people made this pandemic feel real. And so I appreciate the time very much, Commissioner. Good morning, and I hope that you're doing well.
Yeah, I am. Good morning, Mike.
So let's start there. When you look back on that night now, a year removed, and we are, of course, still living in it to a very large degree, but what do you remember most vividly about that day and that night?
Well, it was interesting. You just played that clip of Dr. Fauci. I remember we had been following his comments for several days before March 11th, and even in that testimony that he gave that day, he was actually answering a question at a House Oversight Committee. It was the first time, as far as I know, that he had recommended, not of course that we shut down, but that we not play in front of what he said was large crowds. And I think it was that day on March 11th, earlier in the day before we made the decision to shut down, we had a board meeting with all of our owners. And at that point, we thought it would be a market-by-market issue. There's Santa Clara County, for example, in California, had made a decision where the Sharks play that they needed to play without fans. We saw that coming to San Francisco. But at that point, we thought we were going to continue to operate with reduced number of fans in our arenas, essentially what Dr. Fauci was recommending and what our experts were recommending. And so we didn't, I think, have a sense of the larger magnitude. And I'll just add that because we have a large business in China, we'd lived through SARS and H1 and N1. And I think like most Americans, our sense was this would not hit the United States the way it was hitting Asia. And that we were only beginning to get that feeling in early March that maybe this was going to be different than those other viruses and would affect us in other ways. But even, I remember the day after March 11th, when I was asked what this meant in terms of us taking a pause in the season, in my mind, it seemed like something that would last for 30 days. Not that we would, of course, be having these conversations a year later, and my God, that over 500,000 Americans would be dead from this disease.
It's impossible to believe in its own way still. I read the article or the interview that you gave to the Times, which was fascinating, about how this was a decision you had to make sitting in your car. I'd love you to tell that story to the audience here that hasn't necessarily read it.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we had a board meeting that day, March 11th, to discuss with all our teams what they were hearing in their communities, what their public health officials were telling them, what ordinances we thought were going to be put in place so that we could start making adjustments. And also, you could see from those images that you ran that we had also changed some of the protocols around the cleanliness in our arenas, scrubbing things down, Clorox wipes, etc. Hand sanitizing stations, all of that had begun to be put in place. But there wasn't a sense on that afternoon that we were about to shut down our season. Meanwhile, because of the experience we had had in China, shutting down our offices in late January, we were increasingly spending time thinking about how this wasn't even a pandemic until March 11th, but how this epidemic could impact the league. And one of the things we had done is put in place in each market a relationship with a local lab. So to the extent we had players that were symptomatic and what we understood to be flu-like symptoms, we would not only be testing them for the flu, but we would be testing them for, I think, what people were calling a coronavirus at the time. Of course, Rudy Gobert was one of those players who was tested. Incidentally, he was not the first player who was tested for COVID. He was the first player that tested positive. And we knew that we had an outstanding lab test with him on March 11th, but we had no reason to believe he was going to be positive any more so than any of the other players before him that had been tested. But the Oklahoma, it was in the Utah Jazz were in Oklahoma City. They were under the jurisdiction of the Oklahoma City Health Commissioner. They certainly understood that there was going to be a game that night, 7 o'clock local time. Rudy had already been separated from his team, but they knew, I don't think I understood the term contact tracing then, but they knew he had had contact with his teammates. And so when they got that test result back, literally 15 minutes or so before the game, they urgently called the team. The team then called the league office and said, what should we do? Now, Rudy Gobert had not stepped foot in the arena. He was in the hotel. He had been separated from them. And so we were, as the New York Times pointed out, I was on my way home from work. I live in New York City. I'm working in New York City.